Hello everyone, Maven here. First off, this video will be covering some controversial and emotionally rough topics. If you are easily depressed or anxiety prone, consider carefully before watching. Secondly, my rules are consistent across YouTube, Steam, and Twitch. It is perfectly possible to approach polarizing topics with understanding and civility. I will be removing comments that are openly hostile or antagonizing. Now then, I wanted to make this video to try and verbalize what constantly haunts my every thought and decision I make. Because at this point, I can state with absolute certainty that it is, in fact, trauma. It's the culmination of an anthropological philosophy, an extreme sense of empathy, and exposure to a number of minor abuses that have piled up into a mountain of emotional harm. I'm afraid of my every decision, I'm afraid for those around me I care for, and I feel helpless. Let me be clear, my situation is privileged. I have a supportive family, a few good friends, and I do not have to worry about my day-to-day needs. While I have had encounters that give me a moderate fraction of insight, I do not know what it is like to fear for my life when displaying my true identity, going out on dates, or simply walking after dark. I am in many ways protected, but that doesn't make my trauma invalid. In fact, I believe it goes to show how powerful these issues are. As protected as I am, merely having a moral code, the ability to see a bigger picture, and a vulnerable emotional core, it's enough to burn me in a powerful way. So, I'd like to make an informal treatise of sorts. A treatise of what terrifies me and why I feel trapped and helpless in a world I cannot change. So, point number 1. I am not allowed by the world at large to have dominion over my body. The most powerful example of this mind is the systematic abuse of transgender, non-binary, non-male, and non-white peoples. Based on arbitrary distinctions of race and gender, long proven to be a fiction made to excuse this very abuse, the world at large places restrictions on who may be allowed to access resources, be unmarked by negative connotations, and even what may be considered beautiful. People are pressured to conform their bodies to external restrictions, and they're abused when they attempt to exert the control they rightfully deserve. Bathroom bills, the events in Orlando, Hollywood casting, restrictions on blood donations, systematic class control, the many excusings of rape. While there are success stories here and there, this reality, it's still in full effect. And these are just the most obvious and noticeable aspects. We cannot even begin to confront the less blaringly obvious excuses for things such as tattoos, piercings, hair styles, till the major and far larger issues are dealt with. So, point number 2, I'm not allowed by the world at large to have dominion over my identity. Similar to the above, but an important point to make distinct. We are not limited purely by body, after all. Restrictions on non-heterosexual individuals and relationships may be a form of bodily control, but it is identity that is being directly attacked. Religious identity is also extremely vulnerable, especially demonstrated by the unreasonable attacks and hatred directed towards Muslim people and communities based on the actions of a minor faction. Here, too, are less noticed abuses for things like fandom, hobby, private interests, dress, label choices. You get the picture. So, point 3, I'm not allowed by the world at large to have dominion over my confidence. Again, connected to the above in obvious ways, But I make this distinct because there are many times I see people wounded by events that seem arbitrary or random until looked at from a far larger perspective than we are fully capable of looking at. We are not made to second guess our qualifications, our skills, our passions, our interests, our relationships, our health, our safety. Many times we're made to second guess these based on an accumulation of treatment by unempathetic or uncaring people. Other times we're shocked into believing we have and are owed nothing by major abuses in the world. We are blamed for events beyond our full control rather than being aided over obstacles in our path. And we are discouraged from pursuing interests we are not immediately savants at, rather than being allowed to explore while and where we should. Point 4. I'm not allowed by the world at large to have dominion over my resources. Student debt, medical debt, engineered to fail goods, copyright abuse, legal loopholes, lack of accountability, financial traps, unforgiving job markets, employment traps. There are a number of ways the young, sick, disabled, disadvantaged, and abused are removed from the means of their own survival. It is rarely an issue of not wanting it enough. It's rarely an issue of immigrants taking our jobs. It is almost always the fault of a system designed to remove people from their deserved and desired means of survival in order to further consolidate power in a select few. Again, you could point to specific examples, but look at the wider picture. Look at the stories that are woven throughout society, throughout multiple things. Repeated refrains. Look at how these proportions grow more and more extreme, how populations move based on the promises of hope, only to be set in an equally disadvantaged position. And look at the obstacles most places have in allowing people to move away from locations and situations that are abusive. So, point 5, I'm not allowed by the world at large to change the systems I am a part of. Here we come to another point illustrated by recent events. Say what you will about what corruptions do and do not exist, but the US election and gun safety law blockade have at least revealed and demonstrated a huge number of ways those in power keep the system set up to their advantage. This goes far beyond superdelegates and media bias. This is about parties in general, lobbying, information control, and legal systems designed to be inaccessible to the common person and overly abusable by those embedded within the system. Judges will excuse rapists, politicians will turn off cameras, police will not be indicted or not found guilty, laws will not be passed, and politicians who dissent will not find power. The media will explicitly twist and select for information that serves their purposes, and forms of knowledge and information protest will be declared without authority or unreliable. A number of people with more confidence and passion than I will promote rebellion or a revolution. But we've been taught that violence isn't the answer, even when it was the answer in forming the country, in destroying native peoples to make room for the privileged claims, in enacting change in the past. Now, violence is used by those in power as a way of instantly rallying opposition and shutting down those acts. Never before has there been such an extreme disparity in power between civilians and those currently in power either. It's a lot less easy to just, relieve an armory of goods or to take to the fields with pitchforks, or fire or what have you. A lot less hard when the other side has military compounds with fighter jets, bombs, chemical agents. It's extreme disparity. Not to mention, I find it depressingly amusing that those most promoting for the means of violence to stay in civilians' hands are those who currently don't mind the power structure as it is. Nonetheless, even if I could break free of these cultural shackles, I personally don't think I could bring myself to engage in violence even to change all of this. My ethics are too uncompromising, and I'm not strong enough to take such aggressive action anyway. So, why all these huge, sweeping, systematic problems? What does that have to do with my trauma? Like a role model, cultural models tend to inform those growing into them. If all these major abuses, all these attacks on identity and confidence, these abuses of resources and bodies, if all of this is okay, if all of this is everywhere in the world, why wouldn't it be okay in the classroom? Why wouldn't it be okay on the street? Why wouldn't it be okay in the clique? I have, from a very early age, been exposed to these things. I've had my bodily safety challenged and abused. I have had my confidence repeatedly torn at and trampled by those I trusted. And I've had my identity challenged and decried. I have tried to change systems before, only to be shut down and had my abuses increased. I have sought to be productive, passionate, and trustworthy, only to be never given a chance, taken advantage of, or removed from anything I could call my own. Eventually, my mind began doing these things on its own, tearing me away until I no longer had the confidence to search out friends, until I no longer had the confidence to write for passion, until I no longer saw myself as deserving of basic human needs, of money, of food, of health. Until I could no longer do the things I loved, to be the person I was, or see anyone without tripping over myself in apologies and second guesses. And when you can no longer justify your own health, identity, or existence, when you can no longer make decisions without fearing the consequences, when every single day the thoughts of, I don't like me, or worse, cross your mind, I believe that's very close to the definition of trauma. All it took was a slow buildup of empathy for those suffering under larger systems of abuse than I, and a steady dosage of small attacks on my own person. But I have to keep trying. I have to. The alternatives to keeping on trying cause far more pain to people, and I can't morally do that. So I keep trying to meet that expectation of independence, of productivity, of self-worth, despite the disadvantages I now suffer, despite the cycles that now fill my head. You know what's amusing? The motivation for this video. I could have recorded this when the Orlando shooting happened. I could have recorded this back when I was doing my thesis on Black Lives Matter protests. I could have recorded this over 4 years ago when 2 different social groups almost simultaneously chose an abuser in their ranks over myself. But what motivated this today was something I am mostly unrelated to. An interview with Nigel Farage admitting that one of the claims used to motivate voters to have the United Kingdom leave the European Union was a mistake. A lie. To me, a kid in the US, this should mean little. but it enraged me all anew. Because, like the abuses I suffered, the thing that should have been little triggered every memory, every motion, every impact of all the little things that came before it. I hurt. I hurt for others who hurt. I hurt for the people who will come to be hurt by this. It took me 4 or 5 years to be able to enjoy video games again. 4 or 5 years of emotional work just to get a smile from playing a game. I don't want to think about how many years it's going to take for the disadvantaged, no matter what severity they are disadvantaged in this world, to get back the humanity, resources, and confidence they deserve. My message is this. Try and understand the systems at work. Don't take people's word on things, especially not the media, especially not politicians, especially not people in power. Question, learn, research, and rise above these systems if you can. If you can't play along with the systems as they are, then I really, really hope that you will find the security to live and then find a safe space, a bubble of protection to have the happiness you deserve. I wrote this in like 30 minutes. I would have liked to do it from the heart, but I'm afraid that if I do it straight from the heart, I'm just going to enter and crying, and I'm going to send myself into a funk. So you guys get a scripted video, a scripted blog, if you will. It's all I can do, really. I have to be morally responsible. I have to spread the message where I can, but a lot of it falls on deaf ears. A lot of it falls on people who don't want to look at the bigger systems, who don't want to do the research, who want to look at the evidence they've been taught to look at. And that's why in the beginning of this, I said an anthropological philosophy is needed. It's the reason I chose this major. I didn't choose this major because I thought I'd get hired off the spot and make, a 6-digit figure. No, I chose this major. I chose this path of education because it's the only thing I morally felt I could do and feel safe in and feel like, ironically, an authority, even though that's a term I really shouldn't be using. So I really hope you guys see what I'm talking about. I really hope you guys will carry on and find your way and find how to maybe change things, but this treatise is what I feel every single day, and I hope to God I'm wrong. And if there isn't a God, I hope to nature I'm wrong. I hope to the sake of humanity that I'm wrong. Because the last thing I want to believe in is that we are inevitably doomed to repeat these cycles. At some point, we have to make actual, genuine progress. Thank you.